Do not despise these small beginnings. The big is often hidden in the little. The big is often hid in the little. What does all this mean? It just means that you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. The mere fact or truth or reality that you started at all, that you got in gear and let your clutch out and got moving, is going to make you a winner. You're ahead of the game right then and there. You're ahead of the game rather than someone that just doesn't get started. Body in motion tends to remain in motion. Body at rest tends to remain at rest. I had a message through Instagram, and the young fellow that messaged me was talking about he weighs 160 pounds, which I can remember very clearly when I weighed 160 pounds, because when I weighed 160 pounds, that was a landmark progression for me. That was a landmark status to hit 160 pounds on the scale, actually. I can remember that. It meant something. It was a win to me. And he's been lifting and training, and he wants to hit a 1,000 pound total. And he was relating to me how a lot of people, when he has shared this ambition with others, they've kind of played it down and said, well, that's nothing, and that's no big deal. 1,000 pounds. But for this fellow, 1,000 pounds, that's a goal, man. That's a goal. That's something more than he's doing right now. Right now, in fact, he tells me that he's at 500 pounds. That's his total right now. That's his total. So he wants to hit 1,000 pounds. That's twice as much as he's currently capable of. So that's a hell of an improvement. That is a goal. And what I want to really get across to people, anybody out there in a similar status, maintaining a similar position somewhere in their life, that they're in the midst of working towards something. You don't need other people. You don't need their applause. You don't need their support. It's hella nice if you have some support. But you don't need accolades. You don't need a pat on the back. You don't need people to agree that it's a worthwhile goal or that the effort is well spent or well placed. It's not for anybody to say, it's your life, live your life. You're here on this planet just the same as all of the rest of us. Some of us here for a shorter time, some of us here for a longer time. Nobody really knows the exact when and where it's going to be time for us to leave and that our story ends in this life. Live your life. Somebody at my door. Apologize for that interruption. I should have known. I heard the doorbell. I should have realized it has to be a delivery. Nobody ever just shows up and rings my doorbell. If anybody ever rings the doorbell, I'm aware that they're coming. But it was a delivery. I could have just sat here. They tend to just, when they drop it off or put it inside my screen door, they'll ring the doorbell, which is very polite, very considerate. I should have realized that's what it was. It's Amazon delivery. Yes, it's Amazon. But I needed it quickly because no one locally carries these turn signal bulb for the Audi. And I don't have the exact correct bulb, and I'm not one of these people that, well, this bulb will work. No, I want the bulb that belongs in there. I want the exact specific bulb that it calls for, so that's what I got now. All right, anyway. I lost my momentum. Lost my momentum, for crying out loud. Yeah. Basically, I'm just saying, you don't need to have a whole bunch of people in your corner. You don't need to have a cheerleading squad on your side. You don't need that. You understand? Life is Life is, it might sound cold. Life is not a team effort. It's great if you have a tribe. It's great if you have family. That's all great. Partners, that's all wonderful. That's awesome. It's all good. But if you do not have those things, if you don't have those blessings in your life, if you're alone in any way, shape, or form, from any direction, maybe you don't have anybody that is interested or shares your interests, or you don't have anybody that supports what you're doing, you don't have anybody that believes you can even do what you're doing or that it's even worth the doing. Maybe they don't understand. Well, you don't need them to. I've always said this, you don't need that. It's hella nice if you have it. It's a big plus if you have it. It's a big asset, a boon if you have it. But if you don't, that can't stop you. You don't need that. You do it because you have a passion for it. You do it because you have a lust for it. You do it because you want it. Because you want it. You do it for you. You do it for yourself. Secondarily, there may be other considerations why you do it. You know what I mean? You train, you take care of yourself, keep yourself in shape, keep yourself sharp, keep yourself frosty, cognito ergo zoom. You therefore bring a better version of you to the table in your world around you, and that spills into the lives of anybody that you may come into contact with or that you immediately have into your life that you care about. It enables you to maybe work harder, but more efficiently and more effectively for longer, live longer, healthier, maybe, improve functionality, all that kind of jazz. So there's multitude of benefits. It's multifaceted, the reward, but primarily the motivation is somewhere in the long line, you started out doing it for you. That was the seed that grew and blossomed into the mighty oak. All right, so do not despise small beginnings. Small steps to the moon. Every journey begins with an initial first step. And you will find that the process in and of itself, the journey itself, is the greatest reward. Is the greatest reward because it's because of that fight. It's because of that journey. It's because of the challenges that you had to rise to and that you had to meet to garner whatever that accomplishment is that you see in your future, those short-term goals, that long-term goal, whatever that may be. That's what makes it all the sweeter. That's what makes victory all the sweeter. That enhances the entire experience. Because it wasn't easy. Because you can't just go out and pull up to the drive-through window and hand them a few dollars and they hand you a bag full of whatever it is you're trying to obtain. That's what makes it worthwhile. That's the distinction. That's the separation between this experience, a real valid, life-changing, life-improving, character-building experience, and just going through the McDonald's drive-through and getting a burger. That's not very memorable. When I first started out, I came from very humble beginnings, of course. I was a small guy. I had a fitness background. I was in very good shape, but I was very small. I was small. Like I said, the young fellow, the brother that messaged me, he currently weighs 160 pounds. Now, when I made it to be 160 pounds, I was convinced I'm getting big. I was convinced. You could not tell me otherwise. I was noticeably progressed. I had gained enough muscle mass that I weighed a whopping 160 pounds. I don't know, maybe I was shorter then, because I was kind of a late bloomer in a lot of regards. I grew taller until I was 30, until I was every bit of 30, I was still getting taller. So I have no idea how, I wasn't really that cognizant. It wasn't like I was short for my age or whatever. I was a year progressed in school. So I was always a little on the small side. I was never the smallest guy, in the class, but I was certainly not the biggest guy. That's for damn sure. Never close. I was always a slight physique, right? But I never really realized any of that or took note of any of that once I started, my primary life-changing passion, which was, combat arts, martial art. Which back in the day was a whole different thing than what I think it is today. I'm sorry. Because if you really trained the way that we trained, if you did that today, you would be sued and shut down very quickly and would be classified and categorized as a cult rather than a school or whatever. Anyway, there's a whole nother bottle of whiskey there, a whole nother video. So when I first started to lift, I was probably, I'm not, like I said, I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure what I weighed. I probably weighed, I can remember being 147 pounds, 147, 150 pounds. And I was curling everything I could curl. I would curl, and you see how well my arms grew. My arms have always been really big. They always grew. They were an early growing body part. And really that's because I curled everything and anything. I'd pick up anything and just curl it. I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. Just pick up anything and curl it. It could be a bucket with water in it, a bucket with a little bit of sand in it or some sand in it. It could be a freaking brick, concentration curls with a brick. And then when I worked at Rick's Volkswagen back in, early 80s, when I worked at Rick's Volkswagen, mid 80s, early 80s, I had a series of crankshafts. I built up my collection. Eventually I had 3 crankshafts. And I used to work out with them. I would press it. I would do tricep extensions with it, overhead presses with it, bench press with it, kind of close grip, but it's what I had, with a neutral grip, or your standard grip. I would, do curls with it, all that jazz. I had like a small 4-cylinder Volkswagen crankshaft that I mostly used, and then I progressed to a larger 4-cylinder crankshaft, and then I had a 6-cylinder crankshaft. I wasn't even big enough to have an 8-cylinder crankshaft yet, I don't think. And I would just curl all kind of bullshit. And then the first weights that I had, some of my friends might have, and nobody was really hardcore into this, right? It was just like something we would do occasionally, pass time. But a couple of my friends had the old plastic cement-filled weights. We would lift those a little bit. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. We didn't know what we were doing. Shit, we drink beer and lift. We didn't know what we were doing. Listen to music, drink beer, and lift. But I eventually bought like one of these Bob Hoffman, very modest, small steel weight set. It was a 110-pound set, 1-inch diameter bar, right? 110 pounds. Plenty for me at the time, plenty. And that's when I started to get serious. And initially, I didn't even have a bench because I didn't really need a bench. The weight that I could actually lift was so light, in comparison to today. At the time, it was heavy enough for me that I profited from it. So weight is relative. Like I always say, it's a subjective thing. That I used to take a large Pioneer floor speaker, a house speaker that sat on the floor, a large wooden speaker, kind of like speakers I have over there. Not the same speaker, but similar. See these speakers? It was like that. It was like these speakers, like those, like that. So I would take my Pioneer floor speakers that I had in my little apartment, and I would lay them over on their side, and I would lay them on that speaker and bench. I remember it as clear as day, as if I'm lying there doing it now. I would lay on that floor speaker, relatively small floor speaker. It was substantial at the time for me, compared to me. And I would bench. I would put together little dumbbells with the 2 little handles that I had and put the little collars on them. And I would do dumbbell presses, or the weight, like I was saying, the weight I was moving wasn't really monumental, so I could put some weight on the little 1-inch bar and then clean it over and sit down and lay back down and bench. And I'd get stuck sometimes, Christ, who hasn't been stuck at some point? If you've been lifting long enough, you've gotten stuck before. Roll it down off you, or move it over to the side and get it off of you, or just dump the weights if you didn't have collars on or whatever. But I started out, very modestly. And I made progress. I made progress. You know, and all the things I needed to know, there wasn't any internet, there wasn't anything like that for me to turn it on and sit there and look at it and burn down the fucking day, you know, watching videos and people telling me or putting in my head that everything I was doing was wrong and wasn't going to work and wasn't worth the effort. Nobody, there wasn't any of that kind of input around. You know, I was an introvert anyway. So I just was left to my own devices, and that's what I did. And I grew, you know, small steps to the moon. Small steps to the moon. It's like when they create these huge granite statues and shit, and they slowly chip away to reveal what's underneath. It takes a long time. It's a long process. It's a lot of labor. It's a labor of love and passion. But the reward is well worth it at the end. And you don't need anybody's help, and you don't need people to look at that big lump of rock that you're chipping away at and tell you, oh, you're never going to get there. Or, oh, what's that going to be? It doesn't look anything like that. I can't see that. Doesn't matter if they can see it. As long as you can see it. That's all that matters. It's your life. You're the one that needs to be able to see where you're going. You're in the driver's seat. It's your course. It's your journey. Don't cheat yourself out of any of it, and don't let any outside influences get in far enough that you become discouraged and that you cheat yourself out of it. Enjoy the journey, man, and get busy.